Hello and welcome. Hopefully you can hear me, you can see me. Let me know in the comments if you can see me, if you can hear me. It's great to have another live stream. And thank you ever so much for joining. Today we're going to be looking at teaching English to students online. And if you've got any questions about teaching English online, then don't hesitate to ask. I'll be happy to answer and give me send me any other questions related to English language teaching, education, online teaching, grammar questions, anything. I'll be happy to help. But I hope everyone has been having a wonderful weekend so far, and I hope you had a great week. So if you want to share what you've been up to this week, then feel free to do so. If you've got any sort of questions about teaching, then again, please post your questions in the questions, in the comments, and I'll be happy to reply. As always, don't forget to post your questions in the comments, yeah, we'll see how things are going. But I think what I'll do is share a little bit more about the sort of students that I'm teaching at the moment online. And as you're probably aware, I've been teaching a variety of different students online, not just general English, but I've been preparing students for exams and also business English. So there's one particular student that I teach quite regularly who wants to improve their general business communication skills, particularly speaking, as well as maybe writing, but more so the speaking. And I thought I would share the sort of process and the sort of materials that I use with this particular student. So this student is from Peru. And it's quite nice to teach him. He's usually up very early in the morning. So today, for example, I was teaching him around 11 o'clock. Yeah, about 11 o'clock or so, and for an hour. And his time, it was 5 o'clock in the morning. So he's really dedicated to, have lessons. And he's possibly, I would say, quite mature age, maybe in his 60s. And his business, he deals with a lot of different clients from around the world, particularly in Japan. And, teaching him about business English is quite interesting. And I've been teaching him for about 3 months now. And more recently, he said, I want to have a course book. Can we have lessons based on the course book? And I said, yeah, of course. So I ended up, ordering Market Leader. And this is the particular book that I tend to use. Third edition, and there's like a My English Lab. So if I just show you that, a My English Lab for Pearson, and I end up using this course book, the activities, and we try and plan our lessons based on what to do beforehand. So I normally try and flip the lesson round and say, okay, in this course book, we're going to be looking in our next lesson. So please complete page 10, for example. And if there's a listening, please complete the listening and the vocabulary exercises or the grammar exercises. And then during our live session, we end up reviewing his answers, check in any questions that he may have, as well as completing the speaking activities or the functional language and that side of things. And so I've been using this course book for about 2 weeks now. I'm still on the first unit because he ends up going off topic, which I don't mind. He's more than entitled to. But I thought this was the first time that I've actually taught lessons with a particular course book. the majority of my lessons are planned using third-party websites and applications. So, as in previous streams and videos, I've used materials such as Lingua House or Ellie, and I get the lessons from that. There's ISL Collective and free resources available. Um, but it's a bit difficult to have a sort of structure to follow when it comes down to maybe a professional type of lesson. So, yeah, it's quite nice to have that this course book to fall back on and to go through it in each of the lessons, and it's quite nice. And there's a lot of resources online with my English lab with Pearson for the student to complete, a lot of extra grammar activities because he loves his grammar, but it's still he still struggles from time to time with it. And so, yeah, I'm quite curious to know whether other teachers, online teachers, tend to use a course book for themselves, with their students, or whether they collect a variety of resources online and then get the students to complete the various activities. So for me, as much as I prefer to have as much freedom when it comes down to teaching online, using a course book is a great opportunity to get some sort of structure to follow. And for particular students, I tend to go through it quite methodically, chapter by chapter. Whereas I know there's some teachers that tend to dip in and out of the particular course book. They may start at unit 7 because that's more interesting and they see a potential issue when it comes down to students, a particular grammatical issue that they want to highlight, and then they go back to unit 4 and then forward to unit 10 and unit 2 and dip in and out of it that way, which is, there's no right or wrong way when it comes down to course books. And I so, and I guess it depends on the type of students that you're teaching. So giving that flexibility with the student and yourself when it comes down to planning lessons using course book material, that's great. And for me, it took about a week to prepare, to get the student to order the book and get it delivered in Peru. So I said, okay, order this book if you can and get it delivered as soon as you can. And I gave him a link to the Amazon page, and he got the same book. Took it took about two weeks or so, a week and a bit for it to arrive, for the course book to arrive, and for the student to start looking at it. He'd already registered with my English lab with Pearson's, and he's already started quite well. Yeah, and I do like, when it comes down to business English, like my favorite book. I suppose also when it comes down to self-study and getting students to complete for self-study, there's different areas of focus. So you could focus either on grammar for students to study on or vocabulary. And one of my favorite books for self-study for students and for me to plan lessons as well is maybe English vocabulary in use. So definitely useful for vocabulary. And if you're familiar with that, then, you're on the right track. Also, English grammar in use, great for self-study, particularly for students that you're teaching online, and getting the students to complete and to give them the best possible opportunities for when it comes down to teaching online and for them to do self-study. That would be great. Yeah. Now, any questions? Feel free to comment. I'll be happy to answer. My chair's squeaky. Very squeaky chair. Right, let me see if there's any questions on LinkedIn. That'd be quite nice to see if there's any questions coming through with LinkedIn. Not just yet, but it's nice to keep an eye on that, because the comments on LinkedIn don't come through with this streaming service, unfortunately. I have to go and check it on my phone. But do you use a course book with online courses or lessons? What's your experience been with planning lessons with course books and for online courses? Right. When it comes down to exam preparation, I guess, again, there's a variety of different course books that you could use. And I suppose you've got a choice about whether you go for a course book for exam preparation or whether you go it your own way and you prepare your own material. It would be quite interesting to see. And for me, when it comes down to exam prep, because I find each individual student has their own objectives and aims when it comes down to IELTS preparation predominantly, that the material may be a course book, although you can adapt it. I want to have as much freedom as possible to prepare a lesson so that I can get the student on the right way to pass their IELTS exam. Gosh, it's getting really warm here in the UK. Nice and sunny as well. I think I need to take this top off. So one moment. Right. Yeah. I'm also having my fruit. Quite tasty. Nice plum. So, yeah, any questions? Please post in the comments, either on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Be nice to see what sort of questions that you have. And any comments. I suppose to get us started, let's see. Oh, yes, this is quite a nice one. If I'm doing interviews, I tend to have a list of different questions to ask particular other tutors that are teaching online. And one is knowing you've taught a successful lesson. So how do you know that you've taught a successful lesson? Well, I guess the most obvious one is asking yourself, did I achieve the aims that I set out at the beginning of the lesson? So, you tend to think by the end of this lesson, students will have done X, Y, and Z. So have I achieved my aims? And it's like, if you have, then great. You've achieved what you set out to achieve. When it comes down to maybe the more okay, so that's the overall, the macro view of a lesson. Looking at the micro elements of the lesson. So did the students enjoy that particular lesson, or did the student enjoy that particular lesson? If they did, perfect. That's one good thing. Did the students learn something? That's another question that you could ask yourself. Did the students learn something? Did they acquire something new? Or did they just go through the motions? Or did you just go through the motions? And I think a successful lesson kind of includes a variety of points. And I suppose if I'm taking a lesson, a successful lesson is something that I can take away with me, something that I've learned, something that was new, something I didn't know beforehand. Maybe there's elements that I knew already, but there's something I don't know. And after the lesson, I've learned something new. I think that would be obvious. So students really need to take something away with them that they've not necessarily thought would have happened, but or thought that they knew already. I guess the other element of a successful lesson is, did the students enjoy the lesson? Were they happy? Were they leaving the classroom, or did they finish the lesson, the online lesson, with a smile on their face? um, and it depends on the age of the students. If you've got a professional student, maybe they don't tend to share their emotions so much, but if they're smiling and happy, and they say see you soon, then you could maybe judge same, yeah, possibly, yeah. The student enjoyed the lesson. If you got young students, particularly now, I'm currently teaching, what is it, some kids from Paris. When you say kids from Paris, you think, oh my God, teenagers from Paris. No way. But no, these are like 8-year-old twins, and they're so nice. And as well as learning, or, they speak French, but as well as speaking French, they speak Mandarin, Chinese Mandarin. And they're also learning English in their free time. And today, I finished my lesson with them at 11 o'clock. And they, at the end of the lesson, they would say, oh, thank you, teacher. See you tomorrow. And I said, no lesson tomorrow, Monday. And we're like, oh, best teacher, bye-bye, sort of thing. And you go, oh, that's so cute, So kids, you'll know automatically whether kids have enjoyed their lesson, and they're a lot, they're willing. They don't have any apprehension to share the enjoyment of a particular lesson. So that's always very nice. And also, successful lesson could depend on the sort of activities that you're doing in a class. If you're teaching a group of students, for example, face-to-face or online, varying the tasks can make it a bit more engaging, rather than doing the same thing again and again and again. And how can you vary the tasks? Well, it depends. Like the kids, for example, that I was teaching earlier today. I decided, okay, we're going to focus on places to live. What can I do about places to live? Okay, I can get some photos of different places, and get the kids to describe what they see in the picture, where they think it is, and what sort of people live there, what's around, what do you think is behind you from the picture. And it's really nice to try and tease out that language and get the students thinking creatively, for them to share their own views and opinions, because it makes it more engaging. And to create an engaging lesson, you need to think so creatively as well. Right, bear with me. We've got a comment. Got a comment on YouTube. Hello, teacher. So Mohammed Al Musal, I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Welcome. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, and I appreciate that you have joined in. So again, any questions? Feel free to ask your questions. It could be about English. It could be about teaching. It could be about education. Anything. I don't mind. But thank you ever so much, Mohammed, for joining. Really appreciate it. And if we go back to our questions here, and I got one, knowing how you've taught us successful lessons. So have you achieved your aims? Have the students learned something new? Have the students enjoyed that lesson? Have you varied the activities? I think all these sort of elements play a key role in knowing if you've taught a successful lesson. So don't keep doing the same sort of activity again and again and again. If something works well, that's great, and you can fall back onto it. If the students really enjoy a particular activity, then you could say, okay, well, I'll do that activity again, but I won't be so keen to do it immediately in the next lesson. You can kind of keep it up your sleeve, so to say. Anyway, What other questions have I got here? Well, I've got one question which I tend to ask other online tutors that are teaching online. What makes the best language learner? Um, well, a combination of all sorts of things, I suppose, when it comes down to a good language learner. I suppose a good language learner is engaged, it is not distracted. But then, there's various other things that come into play when it comes down to that. Is willing to take a risk. And if that student takes a risk to improve and they know they're going to make a mistake, then, if they're brave and they're courageous and they make a mistake, then, that's great. I think that's wonderful. And also reviewing what they've studied in the classroom, if they're able to review what they've done and also able to correct themselves afterwards, it makes it so much better. Having a sort of regular study routine makes it a lot easier. Right, we got another comment. What's the best way to improve my skills in speaking? Good question. I like these sort of questions. Right. Well, if there's any teachers in watching this live stream, feel free to share your sort of views or ideas. How could a student improve their speaking skills? I suppose when it comes down to speaking any particular language, there's going to be an element of being, that language being syllable based or being stress based. So a syllable based language for me, I guess, would be a language which each individual syllable is timed the same rate. So da 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 da. Whereas a stress-based language would mean that some syllables are stressed longer than other syllables. So, for example, in English, it's stress-based, and we say photographer. Tor is stretched, and photographer. The rest are kind of short and weak. And if your first language is going to be a syllable-based language, then you need to be aware of how English is spoken and the differences between a syllable and a stress-based language. Do you stress particular sounds in your first language, like a stress-based language, or do you apply each individual syllable equally throughout? Yeah. That's the first thing. And so for English, you need to be aware. So, for example, photographer, photographic, all these sort of things come into play. And it's really important to be aware of this so that you can start to see, okay, I'm going to try and pronounce particular words as much as I can and stress in the particular sounds where they need to be stressed. And then we've got tonic stress, or certain individual words which are stressed then change the meaning. So, for example, I'm wearing a blue short sleeve shirt. I could say I'm wearing a blue shirt. So blue, not red, not white, not green. I'm wearing a blue short sleeve shirt. Or I could say I'm wearing a blue short sleeve shirt. Not you, not him, I. So, yeah. So knowing the differences between maybe sentence stress and, word stress it really is important when it comes down to improving your speaking. Um, the other point is to try and be aware of the particular sounds in English, which, maybe in your language, certain sounds are there, where certain sounds in English, uh, that certain sounds between the two languages are non-existent. So certain sounds in your language might exist, but in English they don't exist. Um, and the common one would be maybe the th sound, and going, okay, I'm going to try and pronounce it as best as I can, and try and pronounce it three, or mother, that sort of thing. So if you're able to improve your pronunciation and be aware of the sounds that you're making, then this will also help improve your speaking skills and intelligibility, and also um, practicing the individual sounds as well, because your mouth and your tongue, and it it is a muscle, and certain sounds in English might be a bit more difficult because you've not practiced that muscle. Imagine you go to the gym and you end up exercising, and this particular exercise that you've not practiced before, it's going to be really difficult to begin with, but the more you practice, the easier it gets. And it's the same with speaking, and individual sounds that help as well. So and also, trying to practice as much as you can will certainly help when it comes down to speaking. But I hope that answers your question, Mohammed. So thank you ever so much for the wonderful question. Really like it. Keeps me on my toes. Right, we've got Keep It Real. Greetings from Acapulco, Mexico. Great channel. I've been taking a note of many tips from your videos. Thank you. Oh, thank you ever so much for commenting. Really appreciate it. Now, I do have a couple of comments on LinkedIn, but like I said, these sort of comments don't come through for the streaming service that um, uh, you know, that I'm using. So I end up having to use my phone and looking at the comments. And I've got one comment here from Vadavel. So thank you, Vadavel, for your comment. Can you please throw some light on the challenges you face to teach ESL learners? Okay, great. Great question. Let me put it in the comments. There we go. So again, yeah, great question. Really like it, and I'll put the question up here. So the sort of challenges I face to teach ESL learners. Uh, well, each student is kind of different. You're not going to, there's going to be certain aspects of teaching which are going to come up again and again and again. And the more you teach, the more adaptable you become, and the more you're able to anticipate potential issues. And I suppose when it comes down to the sort of challenges that you face, I suppose you could look at it in two directions. You could go, okay, the linguistic difficulties, the challenges that I faced, and then the more classroom management issues, challenges. So when it comes down to maybe the linguistic issues, again, it's a bit like being aware of the grammatical issues. Maybe there's certain grammar forms in English that aren't in that particular language that the students speak, or maybe there's the phonetical issues, like I was explaining before about the sort of sounds in English which are different to maybe your students. And then there's like the linguistic, the lexical issues, maybe the collocations and that sort of thing. So for me, if I remember correctly, we say to go skiing or to go snowboarding. But in Korean, for example, they say skirul tada, to ride skis or to ride a snowboard, which kind of makes sense. You are riding them, but collocationally, linguistically, it doesn't connect. It doesn't work in English. So being aware of these sort of difficulties or challenges, you'll be able to anticipate the sort of issues that come up with particular nationalities that you're teaching. Um, and then maybe the more classroom management issues, I guess. Um, different things could happen within the classroom whilst you're teaching. You could have a student who's sick um, in the classroom, and you'll have to deal with it, unexpectedly. Or you could have students who don't work well together. This has been a common thing, or a common thing, or a common challenge that I've encountered, that certain students don't necessarily work well together, and so you have to try and make sure you don't put them together. You have to try and separate them out, and this would be in a physical group class environment. Or you could have the students themselves don't necessarily want to be there, but they're forced to be there. Maybe kids who have finished school and they go into an after school program, and their parents are forcing them to improve their English. And then, all they want to do is they just want to have a rest and sleep because they've been studying all day. And that could be a potential issue. And I suppose for me, it depends on how you deal with these particular issues. So if you have a group of young learners who are not really engaged, and they're going to an after school program, you need to try and engage them in some way. And what do you do to engage them? How do you engage them? This is where you start to think more creatively when it comes down to teaching them. How do you introduce a topic? What's the sort of context builder you set up? That will make it a lot more interesting for potential students who don't necessarily want to be there. Or you could set up the lesson in a different way and vary the activities, like I said before. There's so much. And I suppose for me personally, the sort of challenges I faced, I guess one thing that, depends on the experience that you have. And I remember very limited experience, maybe my first lesson teaching, and being shown, okay, there's your classroom. This is a course book. And your hours are going to be this, and you're going to be teaching the students. And I thought, oh my gosh, okay, no direction. Very limited direction, limited guidance. There's a class, good luck, sort of thing. And I thought, oh, wow, that was a challenge. But then through these difficulties, you find a way. But yeah, really interesting question. So thank you ever so much from the person who wrote it, Vadivel on LinkedIn. Appreciate it. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see. Let's see. We've got a couple of things here. So we've got Mohammed. Yeah, thank you, teacher. You give me good explanation. So you're welcome. Can I learn a third language by using English as my second language? For example, my first language is Arabic. I'm trying to learn German by using English language. Well, no two languages are the same. That's the beauty of languages. If I were to learn, for example, Japanese, there's certain words, lexical items, which are very similar to Korean. But I wouldn't necessarily study Japanese using my Korean. There's certain elements that I can draw out of, but I would still want to try and learn Japanese in a very unique way, like trying to learn Japanese by using the Japanese or trying to learn Japanese by communicating in Japanese or listening, watching TV programs in Japanese without any subtitles and trying to get the sort of gist or the context and understanding the meaning. That would make it a lot better. And for example, if I learn Korean or if I'm studying Korean, I don't necessarily enjoy using my English to learn Korean, but then there's certain times that I have to, I guess. But anyway, and if you're learning German, for example, try and study German. There's going to be certain lexical items, or you're going to see similarities between English and German, a bit like Japanese and Korean. I suppose with Arabic, if I was studying Turkish, there's going to be similarities between Arabic and Turkish and other Middle Eastern languages. And, you know, that languages all are kind of connected loosely. And the more you start to learn different languages, the sort of connections, you can start to see the connections better. Yeah, so try and learn German without the use of English, if that kind of makes sense. But interesting question. I've never really been asked that, but for me, it kind of makes sense. Right. Any other questions? Yeah, we've got Keep It Real here. We've got Mohammed here. We've got Vidavel, or Vadivel on LinkedIn. So thank you ever so much for the questions. If there's no questions just yet, maybe let's see another question or topic. Yeah, common one. Okay, so sort of question that I ask potential tutors or other teachers that I interview is, what advice do you have for entering the online tutoring market? Well, we're certainly living in a world where things have evolved. You know, you go back 10 years even, the online tutoring market wasn't really as established as it is now. And I guess one of the biggest aspects of online tutoring is the accessibility. Everybody has a smartphone these days, so you can watch videos on YouTube. You can watch other tutors on YouTube, and it gives some opportunity for tutors to promote themselves, hence this sort of live stream. So anyone who's interested in learning English, feel free to get in touch. I'll be happy to help you. But yeah, I think if you're entering the online tutoring market, then you need to try and establish a sort of a social media marketing plan. You know, you think, okay, I'm not going to enter the online tutoring market and find a student immediately. It's not really going to happen. You have to try and invest a little bit of time to build up some momentum and some interest from potential students. And some of the students, you know, some English students watch this channel on my YouTube or Facebook, as do tutors. So try and establish a sort of some brand, I guess, or some presence within social media. And what I would recommend is maybe every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, set up a post to go out where you share the difficulties, you know, common problems with English. So it's like, okay, Monday, I'm going to put in a post about present simple and present continuous, and the students can complete, potential students can complete a sort of exercise. And one thing that I've noticed on Instagram or Facebook is a tutor would put up an image, very simple image with text, and maybe say which one is present simple, which one is present continuous. And you got a sentence with the verb or auxiliary verb missing, and uh, a gap, and then a time marker at the end or the beginning. And try and gauges students, and it's like put your answer in the comments below, sort of thing, and so that will start to gain momentum. And again, the first post you put up, it's not necessarily going to be a very quick way to gain students, but it's going to get you started in a way. So try and schedule in a post to go out maybe 1 o'clock your time every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then you can start to batch these or schedule these out for the entire month. And so it's bum, 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 bum. And you work it through like that. And so that could be for Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. And you set up your own page, your group page, and you start to share your post. And it will draw in some interest. Really sorry for the squeaky chair. I need to sort this out. The other thing is to set up a YouTube channel, and to schedule in 10 videos. So record 10 videos, break them down, and release one video per week. And it could be a variety of formats. It could be long form content, so more than, it could be 2-3 minutes, or it could be short form content, less than 60 seconds or so. And once you've started creating content, that video or that short could be shared through multiple streams again. So you've got YouTube initially, then you've got Instagram, then you've also got Facebook, and then you share the same video through different platforms, social media platforms. And that would build some recognition after about a month. And you're releasing a video every week, once a week, and then you're posting some content each week, 3 times a week. It will start to build some momentum, and then you can start to get or you could get students to sign up on a sort of email service, and you share some self-study activities. Once you've got the self-study activities and you've got a variety of different students signing up, and you share that self-study material each week, then you can move on to sort of targeting those students that have signed up for your newsletter, your weekly newsletter, say. And then you start to build up some understanding who these particular individuals are and why they've signed up for you and that sort of thing. And then you can say, okay, if you want to study, maybe at the end of the newsletter, study with me today, and book your first lesson for 10 minutes for free. And then you may get some interest from that. And then once you've got them in, then you can pitch. And that's the sort of advice that I'd recommend for online tutoring, or entering the market of online tutoring. There's other platforms that do a lot of hard work for you and promote your profile as well. So that's a potential as well. Now, hope that helps. Maybe I'll have to have a look at social media and that sort of things. Again, another question from Vadavel on LinkedIn. Yeah. So I'm going to type in the question that he's asked. So, can you speak on the job opportunities for ESL teachers around the globe? Really good question, Vidaval. Really interesting. Sort of job opportunities globally that are available. Yeah. So when it comes down to job opportunities, I guess what you initially need is an undergraduate degree, a certificate in English language teaching. Most recognised are the CELTA or the Trinity Cert TESOL, the Cambridge CELTA. If you've got those two plus your undergraduate degree, then you're all set. You don't need to worry too much about it. You could have an MA if you're really keen to set yourself apart from everyone else. But initially, yeah, have an undergraduate degree and a Cambridge CELTA or Trinity Cert TESOL. Once you've got that, then you're going to be looking for opportunities around the world. Now, much depends on passport that you hold and visa requirements. And each country kind of varies. It depends on each individual country. So I know, for example, in China, that teachers of English, those that are teaching English, if you want to teach in China, then usually you need to have an undergraduate degree from an English-speaking country, plus a certificate in English language teaching. And if you've got those two, then you'll be able to find a job. However, I know of a respected teacher who is not from an English-speaking country, but did their postgraduate degree from an English-speaking country, an MA in English language teaching or linguistics or something like that. And they were able to get a university position in China and not necessarily being what we would classify as a native speaker. However, they're very well experienced, able to communicate, able to teach. And so there are opportunities for those that are non-native speakers to find themselves a job opportunity within a country where you would assume it's really close to just English-speaking countries such as the UK, Ireland, the USA, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, for example. But it's not always going to be the case. You know, certain opportunities may arise, which is maybe the next step is think about doing a MA from a English-speaking country such as you know, the UK or America and New Zealand or Australia. If you've done an MA, then you know it does open up a lot of opportunities. Anyway, I hope that helps. Okay, we've got Dylan here. Dylan Leons, can you tell me why some tutors say Preply materials are not good, and should I change to make my own lessons? Yeah, I can tell you. Actually, let me go on to Preply now. And whilst I'm waiting to enter, let's see. And whilst that's going on, let me just do that. And I'm going to share my screen. So one moment, Dylan, and just bring this up. There we go. So hopefully you can see that. Yeah, I think you can. Right, I'm going to drag this over, and I'm going to have a look for particular lessons. And let's say, okay, planning your vacation, for example. And you think, oh, cool, this is going to be a great lesson to look at with a particular student. Speaking opportunities, questions, feedback, that sort of thing. And you go, okay, let's continue. Okay, let's talk about taking a vacation. It's like, Ah, you could already set it up much better than let's talk about vacation. You could say, okay, um, you could get a variety of different pictures on the screen, where it could be pictures taken where people go on holiday. So, for example, things that come to mind maybe Paris or Rome or Venice or Ireland, Cork or Dublin, Scotland, Edinburgh or Glasgow. You could get a variety of different pictures from around the world, um, Europe, UK, and further afield, and you could get the students and talk about, where are these places? Where do you think they are? That sort of thing. And if you've just joined us, I'm just going through why Preply materials are slightly limited. So already I can see here, I can maybe spend a little bit more time and effort improving the material. If we click continue, we just got key vocabulary, um, which is okay, but what can we do with that? It's just limited again. There could be matching exercises. There could be sort of connecting opposites. Um, there could be, um, you know, and also here, I can't write or draw anything. It's really awkward. There's a sort of button to annotate, but then I've got to install a plugin and a browser extension. So for me, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I just want to use the material. I just want to use the resources the way I want to use it. I don't want to be constrained or confined to this is what we're doing. So yeah, it's a bit higgledy-piggledy, and you can't really click on these, and you can't listen to the pronunciation of the students. I suppose you could say it and that sort of thing. And there's no way to mark the stress, so concerns or opt-in, staycation, book-in, motorhome, comfortable, option, etc. So there's so little. And then, okay, we've got questions, conversation questions. You can say, okay, read this. And you go, it's so dry. Travel is an extremely popular hobby, especially in the summer. Is travel a hobby? I suppose well, I don't think it's a hobby. It's more of an interest, isn't it? Or it's more of an activity than a hobby. A hobby is something that you tend to do in your free time, like playing music or learning how to play the piano or cycling. It's not really a hobby, is it? But yeah, anyway, many of us are starting to think about planning our vacations. But then you go, okay, well, I'm teaching a student. How suitable is this material? If I'm teaching a student that is unable to travel or finds it very difficult to travel, how suitable is it? Then you go, again, it's very difficult. Um, and if I'm asking this question, have you already made vacation plans? Where would you most like to go if you could? And if they're speaking and I'm going, okay, all right, how do I make notes about what they're speaking? Again, I can't. It's very complicated. And, do I have to install this plugin where I can, and it doesn't look like I can type text. It just looks like I can, well, it does actually. It looks like I can, but where do I save that once I've removed it? That's what I would do. So what you could do is you could copy and paste the questions, and we go, all right, staycation, motorhome life, plan carefully, and one more item. And you go, okay, there's a video, 10 tips on planning an upcoming trip or vacation. I go, is that it? What am I meant to do in the next 20 minutes or so? If it's a 50-minute lesson, how long will this last? Not very long at all. And what sort of activities are there to review the vocabulary? There isn't really. It's just a bunch of questions and conversation questions. So mm, it's okay. It's better than nothing. But yeah, I would certainly recommend that you maybe plan your own lesson, Dylan. So that's why I'm not so keen on Preply material, because it's just so fixed. It can't be opened up. It can't be you and their whiteboard and their lessons don't kind of connect together. That don't integrate. And why not make the lessons more adaptable? Why not provide PowerPoints that you could start to edit and improve and develop based on the materials that they've already got on their platform? So if I were you, I would recommend maybe referring to their materials, but then adapting it, improving it, so that you can make a PowerPoint lesson or a Word document, and then you have a lesson ready to use, not just for that one student, but all other students when it comes down to that particular topic. So it certainly has potential, but at the moment, as it is, not so great. So I hope that answers your question, Dylan. But really good question. I like it. Thank you ever so much. Okay, I have time for maybe one more question if everyone wants to post their comments wherever you're looking at. Let me see if there's anyone else who's commented on LinkedIn. Again, LinkedIn doesn't necessarily post their comments on this streaming service, so it's a bit difficult. Okay, we've got here Dylan again. I host some students on Zoom, and yes, I make my own PowerPoint material for them, and I much more enjoy that. You hit the nail on the head. Take it and make it better. Perfect. Thank you. You're very welcome. You know, even more established course books, like I shared at the beginning of today's live stream, if you've got some material, use it and take it and make it better, make it more improve it, make it more suitable for the students that you're teaching. And your students better than I do or anyone else does, and you know what works and what doesn't work. Okay, got a few more minutes. Any other final questions? Feel free to post your questions up on, and I'll see what sort of questions you've got. Anything on LinkedIn? Let me just double check. No, we've only had Vadavel post their comment, so thank you ever so much for your comment. Right. If that is it, if there's no comments, no questions, I'm going to finish it off there. But yeah, thank you ever so much for everybody who has joined today's live stream. I really enjoyed everybody who came along and asked their questions. So thank you ever so much for Mohammed for his questions. Oh, we got one more. Okay, come on then. Could you tell me how to choose a CELTA center? What are the points to look at? Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Okay, I will do that now. Okay, bear with me. Let me look. Right, there we go. Let's share this instead. And let me add this in. So really good question. What are the points to look at? How do you choose your CELTA center? So how can I make this slightly bigger? Okay, well, kind of. So here we have choosing your CELTA center. It's from Cambridge English, and I'll put this in the comments. So one moment. But yep, there we go. So here you go, okay, what sort of location am I looking at? And you've got a variety of different countries. You've got a region, you've got a city to collect, and then teaching qualification. So I think the first thing that you need to look at is maybe, okay, what sort of countries, if you have a list of countries that you're considering, what country would be best for me? You go, okay, let's say Thailand, for example. I know people who've done their CELTA course in Thailand. And I guess what you could do is you could think about, okay, what is an affordable place to go to? Do I want to pay London rates to go and do a course in London? Do I want to pay for the accommodation? Do I want to pay for the the sort of daily expenses, food and drink, subsistence? Just and that's even before I get into the center. And it can be very expensive in London. You go, okay, no, Thailand is a lot more affordable. So affordability is uh, quite important. And let's say, okay, central Thailand, let's say Bangkok, and let's say Celta. And if you click on that, you go, International House Bangkok, you click here, and it gives you the information and the contact details and the website. And if you click there, it kind of opens up, and then you've already got the information available to look at. And that's when you can start to find out a bit more information. Or you could say, contact Danny Wilcox in Thailand and say, I want to do CELTA. I want to do the CELTA in Thailand. Yeah, what do you recommend? How much is the course? And then you can start to research on, okay, what hotels are nearby the center. And you can see here the map. You go, okay, there's a sort of suite hotel. You got different hotels, the Ambassador Hotel, and you can zoom in and zoom out. You got the Hyatt Regency and various other things. But if you also know anyone who lives in that country, then you don't have to pay for the accommodation. But it's going to be a darn sight cheaper than maybe going into London to study as well for the CELTA. If you want to do the online, you could do it in the center. You could do it in your own home. You don't have to travel anywhere. Um, and let's say CELTA online, we choose the UK, and there's going to be a load of different places that you can do the CELTA online all around. And we've got EC London, for example, English Language House, Milton Keynes, Glasgow, Brighton, quite close to where I am. You go, okay, let's do it. And again, you've got the contact details. So that's what I would recommend when it comes down to choosing the CELTA Center. Maybe choose one that's recognized or recognizable and respected and highly regarded. And also think about if you want to do a face-to-face CELTA course, or if you want to do something which is available online. If you do it online, you can do it from home. You just are doing the lessons as well online. You don't necessarily have to be in a particular country. You just need a stable internet connection, and you don't need to travel to the center. So that would be possibly the most convenient, flexible one. And the online CELTA, it could be either, I guess, 4 or 5 weeks or 9 weeks part-time, or flexibility. It's a lot more flexible now than it was all those years ago when I took the CELTA. But and also see if you could contact previous students from the CELTA course to see what is their opinion. Worth asking that. Is there a particular tutor that completed the CELTA course that I could contact and find out how they found it, whether it was online or face to face? And if it's a good center, they'll be more than happy to share contact details of previous CELTA trainees on the course. Okay, thanks for answering my question. You're very welcome. Affordability is a major factor. I'm thinking of taking Celtra online to make it even more affordable or adorable. Adorable, I guess. Yeah, if you want to make it adorable, why not? And also to be able to keep it, to do it on weekends alongside my full-time job. It makes sense. Nowadays, online courses are a lot more accessible and affordable, and doing it part-time at the weekends over a period of like 5 or 6 months, why not, eh? But yeah, thanks for your question. And DJ Cooks and Books, I like it. I like your title. Very nice. Right. Thank you ever so much for everybody who joined today's live stream. I will be hosting our next live stream, not next week, but in 2 weeks. It'll be nice to see everybody here in 2 weeks' time. So keep your comments coming. I really like it. And if there's any teachers who want to join me on the live stream, feel free to get in touch. I'll be happy to invite you. But have a lovely weekend. And I hope you have a great summer. Summer for me is kind of kicking off now with lots of courses, but good to be busy, as well as a lot of other things in the background. So it's there's a lot that's happening, and I'll be sharing more and more in the coming months and weeks, I guess. But yeah, thank you ever so much. Have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Thanks for everybody who tuned in and all your wonderful comments and questions. And yeah, stay safe and happy teaching.